Kelly, through the sheer power of his imagination, manages to create an imaginary threesome scenario in his classroom with two of his classmates, Dominique and Sarah. Amazingly, they're stimulated too. But to understand where his power comes from, let's back up a bit. A few months back, on a late evening, a dilapidated van winds its way through a forest. It's around midnight. A man named Pfluger emerges from the van. He is digging up a grave marked for religious significance. He eventually extracts the skull from the grave, which releases a white smoke and violently throws him backwards. Next, the film shifts to a teenage boy named Kelly, who is shopping at a nearby convenience store. There, he runs into Dominique, a girl he's known since childhood and has a crush on. Kelly chats briefly with her before leaving the store. As Kelly exits, he's confronted by his longtime bullies, Nelson, Reed, and Brad. They tease him for his habit of eating paper and styrofoam. Dominique sees Kelly in trouble and steps in to help him, warning the bullies to leave him alone. This angers the bullies, who then push Kelly's head into a trash bin. The noise draws the store owner's attention, who comes out and drives the bullies away. However, they manage to record the incident and share it online, further embarrassing Kelly. In another part of the story, an indigenous man named Red Elk discovers the disturbed grave and offers prayers over it. Meanwhile, Kelly becomes ill from consuming pencils and erasers. His doctor suggests to his mother, Bernice, that he should see a psychologist for his eating disorder. In a later scene, Pfluger is seen in town claiming he can cure people's illnesses. He demonstrates his abilities by relieving an elderly woman's joint pain. Impressed, Bernice asks him to come to her house to try and heal her son. As she goes to fetch her car, Red Elk approaches Pfluger, offering assistance to rid him of his healing abilities. Pfluger refuses, prompting Red Elk to strike him. However, in a strange twist, Red Elk ends up hitting himself. This reveals that the medicine Pfluger took from the indigenous grave shields its carrier, causing harm to anyone trying to hurt Pfluger. Red Elk cautions Pfluger that misusing the medicine's power could lead to his demise, but Pfluger ignores the warning and heads to Kelly's house. When Pfluger touches Kelly, he experiences a strong shock and retreats, asking for a moment alone. In the bathroom, he consumes alcohol and cocaine before attempting to heal Kelly again. Pfluger accidentally burns Kelly's chest with a cigarette, screams in agony, and collapses, eventually dying. Once Pfluger dies, Kelly recovers. The police remove Pfluger's body, and Officer Adler offers his contact information to Bernice for any further issues. Kelly discovers the burn on his chest has healed and notices a physical change in himself. Later, when Reed tries to bully Kelly, he unintentionally injures himself, indicating that Pfluger's powers have passed to Kelly. With these new developments, Kelly's life begins to improve. He even lands a job at a pizza restaurant. That evening, Reed and Nelson's father, Whitcomb, arrives at Kelly's house to express his displeasure about Kelly allegedly attacking his son. Whitcomb remarks it's strange that Kelly, once a victim of Reed's bullying, has now turned the tables. Bernice becomes upset at this comment and confronts Whitcomb. After Whitcomb's departure, Kelly reveals to his mother the truth about his newfound abilities. Bernice reacts with a mix of shock and wonder, expressing concern for Kelly and urging him to avoid drawing unnecessary attention. At school, bullies fail to intimidate Kelly. During class, Dom accidentally drops her hair tie on Kelly's desk, and he eats its tag before giving it back to her. Soon, Kelly begins to have intense fantasies about Dom, and she starts feeling their effects. Kelly then imagines Dom's friend Sarah joining them, and as his fantasies intensify, both Dom and Sarah are affected. The situation escalates in the classroom with all three experiencing a public climax, leading Kelly to rush to the bathroom. Later, at a school party, Nelson forcefully takes Dom away, which angers Kelly. He confronts Nelson, but before the situation worsens, Whitcomb steps in and separates the boys. Subsequently, Brad and his friends encounter Kelly on his bike. They attempt to run him off the road, but Kelly remains unshaken. In a fit of rage, the bullies give chase. Brad loses control and hits Kelly. The car crushes Kelly's head, but when the dust settles, it's revealed that Brad's skull is the one crushed, and he has died. As everyone gathers around, Kelly shares with Dom the entire story, including his mystical ability. Meanwhile, Nelson and his friends falsely tell the police that Kelly was cycling in the middle of the road, causing Brad to veer off the road in an attempt to avoid hitting him. After a brief investigation, the police decide not to pursue any charges against Kelly. Red Elk, upon hearing about Pfluger's demise, visits his grave. He examines the soil and concludes that Pfluger had lost his powers before his death. Learning about Kelly's miraculous survival from the car incident, Red Elk visits Kelly at his job and questions him about Pfluger. A nervous Kelly admits to having been treated by Pfluger. Elsewhere, Nelson and his gang are irked by how easily Kelly seems to be moving on after the incident. They plot to get revenge for their friend's death by destroying Kelly's trailer home. They wait for Bernice, Kelly's mother, to leave for her night shift before acting on their plan. However, their plan hits a snag when Kelly unexpectedly leaves work early and Bernice falls ill, deciding to stay home. Unaware of this change, Kelly goes to town to buy medicine for his mother. Nelson and his friends, mistaking Kelly's absence for Bernice's, attach their pickup truck to the trailer with Bernice still inside. They drag the trailer away, but in their haste to flee the scene, they leave the chain attached to the truck. Trapped inside, Bernice is in peril as the stove begins leaking gas. The gas eventually ignites, causing the trailer to explode. Kelly comes back to find the trailer engulfed in flames and desperately tries to save his mother. Tragically, he's too late, and Bernice succumbs to the flames. Devastated by the tragedy, Kelly is taken to the hospital, where Officer Adler persuades the staff to let Kelly stay another night while he arranges a new living situation for the boy. Meanwhile, Red Elk meets with Adler, who shares his Native American heritage, at the hospital. He informs Adler about Kelly's supernatural abilities. Red Elk suggests they should speak with Kelly, but Adler feels it's not the right time to discuss ancestral legends during such a traumatic period in Kelly's life. Red Elk agrees but asks Adler to reach out when he feels it's appropriate. Dom remains supportive of Kelly during his mother's funeral. When Kelly breaks down, Dom reassures him that it's okay to express his grief. Kelly insists on being strong to make his mother proud, but Dom reminds him that Bernice was always proud of him. Kelly then shares his intention to leave town, which upsets Dom. They share a passionate moment, experiencing a peculiar sensation but don't dwell on it. After Dom departs, Kelly visits Pfluger's grave, where he eats a wild weed growing there, only to immediately vomit. Sarah witnesses this from afar. Officer Adler later takes Kelly to social services and discusses the accident. When Kelly learns that the trailer was dislodged from its supports before the gas leak, he suspects foul play. On the other hand, Nelson and his friends show no remorse for their actions, keeping their role in the incident a secret. They decide to unwind at Riverbend after a taxing week. On their way, they spot Adler driving Kelly out of town and seize the opportunity to mock him. Furious, Kelly jumps out of Adler's moving car and covertly tails Nelson and his friends to the river. Tucker strips down for a swim, while Nelson and the others casually toss stones at him. Seizing the opportunity, Kelly snatches Tucker's shirt, bites off a piece, and then chokes himself with it. This bizarre action causes Tucker to struggle for air in the water. As Tucker tragically drowns, Nelson and his friends watch in disbelief, unable to save him. Kelly boldly confronts them, admitting his part in Tucker's demise. Reed, in panic, flees but quickly returns with Officer Adler, forcing Kelly to escape. The boys inform the police about Kelly's involvement in Brad's death, but the authorities find their story implausible, suspecting them of foul play instead. That night, Kelly appears at Dom's window. When she inquires about the incident at the river, Kelly confesses his scheme for revenge. The following day, in chemistry class, Kelly intentionally provokes Tony, hoping to elicit a confession about Bernice's murder. Nelson tries to defuse the situation, but when Kelly ridicules Tony's girlfriend Sarah, Tony loses control and hurls acid at Kelly. However, Tony ends up injuring himself, collapsing in agony and eventually dying. A furious Sarah kicks Kelly, but ends up hurting herself, while Dom watches in shock. In the wake of the chaos, as Adler and the teacher arrive, Kelly makes a quick escape, leading to the suspension of school classes until his capture. That night, an anguished Sarah visits Nelson, and they conspire to retaliate for Tony's demise. Sarah informs Nelson about a specific vine in the cemetery that made Kelly ill, and they set off to collect it. Meanwhile, Adler gets in touch with Red Elk, and together they dig up Flugger's grave. Concurrently, Whitcomb takes his sons to football practice. There, Adler spots the chain used to demolish Kelly's trailer in Whitcomb's truck and confronts Nelson and Reed, but they feign ignorance. Kelly, armed with an electric drill and having ingested a piece of Nelson's clothing, shows up at the practice. Prepared, Nelson reveals a container filled with the cemetery's wheat juice. Adler tries to stop Kelly, but he drills into his own knees, causing the same pain to Nelson. Amidst Nelson's cries, Kelly demands a confession for Bernice's murder. Dom arrives, and Kelly ceases his assault. Seizing the moment, Nelson douses Kelly with the wheat juice, causing him to collapse. Whitcomb, seizing Adler's gun, shoots at Kelly but inadvertently kills Nelson and himself. Dom, disapproving of Kelly's methods, persuades him to relinquish his powers. Kelly hesitantly agrees, and they go to the cemetery with Adler and Red Elk for a ritual. During the ritual, as Dom supports Kelly with a kiss, he starts convulsing violently, prompting Dom to urge Red Elk to stop. The police encircle them and demand they freeze. When Kelly tries to flee, an officer shoots him, causing the bullet to also hit Dom and the officer. A mortally wounded Dom shares a final kiss with Kelly before she dies. Devastated by Dom's death, Kelly consumes Flugger's decomposing body, aiming to end his powers with his own life. The film concludes with a stunning revelation. Dom, having acquired Kelly's powers through their last kiss, resurrects in the back of an ambulance.